we turn to Reynolds with a subject matter that actually isn't a tongue twister, which should be pretty awesome. What are we talking about?
I'm going to talk about the automation of warehousing and that section of the distribution chain. This is something that is coming increasingly into focus as one of the next steps in automating our society. When you look down the, well, okay, so it's 30 miles away. When you look a ways away from here to the Target warehouse, or a ways away from here in a slightly different angle to the Walmart warehouse, or to any of the other warehouses here or anywhere else, they're historically people-centered. You have people, mostly men, moving big boxes around, running forklifts, doing all these things to store the goods that are subsequently distributed to stores. And when you're setting a warehouse like that up, you set it up with the workers in mind. So for example, they tend to, you've all been in a warehouse at some point, they tend to have long corridors of shelving with stuff on the shelves, just like Home Depot would. And they run around and the things are arranged in a way that makes sense to people. So if it's a warehouse that supplies Home Depot, you're going to have, the lumber in one section and the toilets in another section and the wallboard in another section and so forth. Well, some companies are now seeking to automate their warehouses, and you set them up completely differently. For one thing, as Jonathan already pointed out, you don't need lights. He pointed that out in the last episode. If you're using it with an automated system, you don't need lights.
You might.
Well, they don't.
Usually they use chips, but there are some that are using the QR scan codes
Oh, yes.
for their robots to realize where they're going.
Well, the article I recently read
So you might need lights,
that
or
you
at least
were
flashlights.
using a schema. So you have this diagram of the warehouse, and everything is in a particular spot. When they're delivered and they're taken by forklift and put into their spot, they're put in the same spot. When they're taken to be shipped to a store, they're taken out of that specific spot and shipped. And that schema is set up according to a completely different method because you don't have to worry about the human brain. So instead you can do, instead of saying, okay, the toilets go here, the sinks go here, the plumbing fixtures go here, you say, okay, what items are the most purchased? Okay, so over here we have chandeliers, now we have toilets, now we have baseboards, now we have, and you set it up according to the likelihood of something having to be moved, so that the things that are going to be shipped out the most are the most accessible to the robotized little loaders. And the things that are only going to be sent out, at Christmas time on alternate years, those are all the way in the back on the rear wall, where it's harder to get to. This, however, allows the elimination of most warehouse workers. Not all yet, but most warehouse workers can be eliminated through the use of these schemas and these robots, or perhaps these QR codes and these robots with readers.
And drones.
And of course,
That's the Amazon.
well, drones is more of a delivery mechanism. And that is certainly coming. Drones are a threat to postal workers and UPS workers and other workers who deal with taking things from the warehouse for Amazon or eBay or wherever to your house. And
December 2016, the first drone deliveries from Amazon occurred.
I presume that was in a major city.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to start off with the same question that Justin started off with on automation. What scale are we talking about?
Right now, it's only 3 or 4 companies attempting to do it.
I mean the industry. How big is warehousing as an industry?
Oh, warehousing is part of the entire supply chain. I think how major it is varies according to where you are, but I can tell you that between the warehouse for Target and the warehouse for Walmart, I believe they employ about 1,200 people. So that's just 2 warehouses in just one state.
In one region of one state.
In one region of one state.
We talked about automated manufacturing. Why do a separate video on automated warehousing? What's
Well, for one thing, there are entirely different technologies at play. Warehousing, and they are related. The warehousing thing involves the same type of, in fact, learning algorithms in many cases, where it not only takes into account what's being purchased, what's being sold, but it also takes into account weight and dimensions for shelving things in a warehouse so that it can get the most efficient use. But you've also got drones are a specific thing that are being used. They're much different. And there's also an additional thing that 2 major companies, Walmart and Amazon, have both announced their intent to downsize their warehousing and automate that particular system. That is a distinct and major thing that's not being kind of emulated at the same level in manufacturing.
That's because it already was.
Some of it was.
In the 1970s, the elimination of mass labor through robotization in the auto industry, the steel industry, 70s, 80s, early 90s, huge.
Yep.
as these companies, say a Walmart, as they're starting to robotize, I like that, that's a cool word, are they doing anything for the employees that they're potentially letting go? Are there any lawmakers that are talking about that?
Some places offer retraining, but again, it goes back to something I said in the last video. What are you retraining for?
Mm-hmm.
There have to be jobs to go to. And the fact, it is deceptive to look at our unemployment rate at the moment. Our unemployment rate at the moment is the best it's been in a decade. But a lot of that employment is susceptible to this.
I also do want to point out while we're talking about unemployment that should not be confused with labor participation,
Right.
because that's been a big thing. Labor participation is going down specifically because of retirement.
Right.
Huge numbers of people are leaving the workforce because they don't have to work anymore. That's not an issue that we're talking about. I mean, I personally have, I think that we should be looking at, as labor comes down, this once again is a topic for next month, but as the need for labor comes down, retirement comes earlier and easier.
Mm-hmm.
That way, we have room for more
Yeah.
people who are, who want to really work, who want to get out there in the economy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just back to automated warehousing. What's what do we want to be focusing on?
What do we want to be focusing on? Well, within the idea of the entire supply chain, which includes manufacturing, storage, and distribution, we need to look at the speed with which it is moving compared to the speed with which it's touching, I guess. Segments are moving. In terms of jobs, someone should be observing where these people land. How many of them do land in the service sector? How many of them go back to college and get a degree and land somewhere else? How many of them don't land? Because along with the loss of older labor market participants, we are seeing lower numbers of people. That's why I said the it's really deceptive to look at the unemployment numbers. People are finding other ways to survive, which will work for a period of time.
One of the things about that is that, we've got different sectors of the economy that are, we've got transportation, we've got manufacturing, service industry, etc. Warehousing is one of those sectors. And part of the reason why I'm glad that you're bringing up warehousing is that this is just a demonstration that this isn't an isolated thing. That these machines, that computers are getting more and more versatile, more and more powerful, and more capable of doing all these things that we used to do. And in many ways that's great, except that we still have to make a living. In fact, I think that it's amazing, and if you get rid of that last component, I don't want to use the word utopia, but certainly a better world than what we have now.
I guess I was just asking the question because, for myself and maybe others that are watching as well, trying to figure out if there is a difference, which you mentioned this that there is, and then what is that difference? Why would we, be focusing on warehousing specifically? And I think what you're saying is, we're more highlighting and saying, okay, we've got automated manufacturing. Warehousing is one of these components.
Yep.
We talk a lot about the workers themselves and the robotization. What about the consumers on the other end? The consumers that are buying these widgets, and what's
Well, historically, those consumers have also been workers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. We have a system built out of all these segments.
yeah.
And we're changing these segments, but expecting this one not to change.
Yeah.
And that's not possible.
A video that I watched by Ray Dalio.
Okay.
He's runs Bridgewater Associates, one of the top hedge funds on the planet. The video, he shot this video, it was, how the economic machine works or something like that, half an hour, but the whole takeaway is, that we go through cycles, short-term and long-term. But what he mentioned is that everything comes down to a transaction. He says one man's spending is another man's income. One man's spending is another man's income. And just a side note on that, I just read an article about Dalio and Bridgewater Associates. I don't remember exactly the time frame, but they, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere like 70. They're looking to automate 75% of their workforce. And these are people making financial, because they want to take emotions out of decision making.
Yep.
And so this is not just manufacturing. We're talking across the board.
That's the key.
Finance and investment is a huge area that could.
The key is there is no, in the short term, there are areas that are protected. In the long term, there's not a single segment that's safe.
So what's interesting to me is, as we're shooting today, we started with automated manufacturing. Then we took just one segment, automated warehousing. And what's interesting to me to note is that all of our discussions, and not just from these two, but almost all of our discussions on a lot of these videos that we put out, they all seem to bring us to one spot. And I think looking forward, and we've discussed this, and I think we're going to be focusing in on these effects, these causes, and then more importantly, the solutions. I don't know what else to say about the warehousing bit, but I think that this just illustrates the point.
No, absolutely. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, make a response video, join in the conversation. And as always, keep
Looking forward.